Breaking news, President Obama has made his decision and his choice. He will announce his pick to fill the vacant Supreme Court seat today at 11 a.m. Eastern. That seat has been open since the death of Antonin Scalia over a month ago. The top names being floated this morning, Sri Srinivasan and Merrick Garland. Both judges sit on the U.S. Court of Appeals. Republicans in Congress have vowed not to vote on the president's nominee until after the November election. I want to bring in right now former U.S. Attorney General Michael Mukasey. Mr. Attorney General, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your thoughts on the president's announcement today?
Well, the president has the responsibility to nominate under the Constitution. On the other hand, the Senate has the responsibility to act or not act. That's the way the Constitution was laid out. In fact, this came up. The question of timing came up at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, and Alexander Hamilton, who was a great proponent of presidential power, wanted a deadline on the Senate acting or else the nominee would go through, and that was voted down.
Wow. Well, I mean, Mitch McConnell has been very clear. They're not going to take this up until after the presidential election, after November, so that the new president can choose this Supreme Court nominee. Given these names, like if it is a Sri that we've been talking about, if it is these judges who are being talked about as somewhat moderate, does it make more sense for the Senate to go along with this now rather than perhaps later?
That's a political decision for them to make, and that's the way the Constitution, people who wrote the Constitution, planned it. I understand the arguments in favor of holding a quicker hearing because the court on many issues is deadlocked 4-4. On the other hand, the nature of the issues that the court has been dealing with since the 1960s has been increasingly political, and there's a good argument for letting the political process play out. That is the presidential election, in which people will debate what kind of justice to appoint.
So let's say the president makes his choice today and the Senate says, no way, we're not even taking this up. What's the reaction? What are the implications of that?
The implications are that the court will continue to conduct its business, and to the extent that there are cases that can be decided by a majority, they will be decided. The Chief Justice has it within his power either to take the cases that can't be decided, that is those that they're split on 4-4, and either issue 4-4 opinions, in which case what happens is the lower court opinion is affirmed, but it doesn't have any precedential value, or else put them over to a later term of the court after that seat gets filled.
What do you think would be, I mean, what do the people want to see? I mean, is it better for the GOP to accept his nominee today, or wait and perhaps get Hillary Clinton's nominee if she wins the election?
That's a political decision, and that's exactly the way the Constitution planned it. And I'm a lawyer, not a politician.
And so going forward, whatever cases are up against the Supreme Court, if they can't be decided by a majority, they just sit there. They're not decided.
They can be decided based on the opinion below, but they won't have any precedential value in later cases. In other words, they won't be binding on anybody other than the parties in that case. Or else they can be put over to be re-argued later on. Tell
me about these two gentlemen that we're talking about. Do you know them? Can you talk about what kind of approach they would take on the court?
I don't know Sri Srinivasan very well, although he served in the Justice Department when I was there. I know Merrick Garland a little bit better. They are two of the people who are well qualified among many others who are well qualified to serve. I mean, these are not the only two people who are qualified to sit on the Supreme Court.
So there is a longer list, you think, that we could see as the time goes on?
Sure. I mean, understand, there are lots of talented legal minds out there, some of whom may not even be on courts.
Yeah. Given the vitriol against the GOP so-called establishment, if Mitch McConnell were to roll over and say, okay, well, the president has these two names, we will take this up, wouldn't there be backlash from voters and people who are already feeling like they've gotten rolled over?
That's a calculation for him to make. There may very well be.
Yeah. Let me switch gears actually about Apple, because, of course, Apple
I can't really... I mean,
Apple and the FBI?
Right.
Apple said it was appalled by what the government is asking them to do.
I can't discuss that because of business.
Okay, so no comment whatsoever, because we talked about it before.
You and I have.
Yeah, but, okay, because you're involved. Yeah.
Can't get into it.
We've got any thoughts from last night? Any takeaways from what you saw last night?
I went to sleep early.
Michael Mukasey, great to have you on the program today.
Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. Be sure